Cause this is the one person that's supposed to drop kick that baby back into the river. What's up, y'all? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever. But welcome to Bible Study, baby, for the biblically uneducated and the slightly unhinged. Biblically uneducated because you ain't gotta know about the Bible to be here. And slightly unhinged because let's just get started. We in pages 160 to 165 in a Bible study book, and this is the Good and Beautiful Bible study book. I'm gonna be using it a lot because it was the first thing that ever helped me even understand the Bible, so I feel like it'll be helpful for other people who don't understand the Bible. But if you don't have the Bible study book, it's cool. We're gonna be in Exodus 1 through Exodus 2 verses 1 through 10. So just to be clear, Exodus 1, all of it, and then Exodus 2 verses 1 through 10. But anyway, let's get started. So we starting off in Egypt, and this is well before Jesus' days. And the law right now is if you just had a baby, and that baby was a boy, you gonna have to chuck him in the river. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that law was set in place because the Pharaoh at the time, he was scary. He noticed that the Israelites was growing in numbers, right? He was like, all right, cool, let's enslave them. That didn't work. They grew larger in numbers. And that's when he was like, you know what? I just got to put this law in place. Because for him, in his mind, he figured they was going to team up with his enemies, fight him and defeat him, and lead a country. Fear is a powerful thing. But with laws like that in place, let's be real, not everybody about to go for that. And one person in particular, Jochebed. Now, Jochebed had a baby, little boy. He was beautiful. She said, I ain't going for that. So she kept her baby and she hid him. But I don't know what happened. I'm thinking maybe the block got hot, because 3 months later, she found herself back down at the river. But she was low-key on the same type of time she was before, because she wasn't just about to toss her baby in nobody's river. She got her basket, covered it in like tar and pitch so that it would float, which is ironically the same way Noah's Ark floated, but that's another story for another day. So once she knew it could float, she put the baby in a basket, and she put him along the reeds so he wouldn't just like rush off into the current. He would, he got a little bit more of a chance. Because let's be real, carrying a baby for 9 months just to yeet that baby in the river goes crazy as is. But after actually being able to take care of that baby for another 3 months, I see why she did it. But after she did it, there wasn't really much else she could do, so she left. But while she was on her way back to the crib, I don't know if she knew it or not, but her daughter Miriam was standing in the cut, because she needed to know what was going to happen to her baby brother. Because let's be real, she had a whole 3 months with that baby too. Tell me why out of all the people that could have found that baby, it had to be Pharaoh's daughter. Like Pharaoh, the Pharaoh that put in the law that said if you had a baby and it was a boy, you had to chuck him in the river. So if I was Miriam, I'd have been shivering in my timbers. Because this is the one person that's supposed to drop kick that baby back into the river. Now, I am judging her. Going to bathe in a river where kids go to get unalived just don't seem like you not your daddy's daughter. But maybe that was just me. I ain't gonna do too much. She wasn't on the type of time I thought she was on. So boom, let's recap real quick. So the mama Jochebed that put her baby boy in the river. She made sure he would float. She made sure he would be good, but she couldn't watch. Now, her daughter, Miriam, as Miriam is watching out for said baby brother, Pharaoh's daughter pulls up to the river because she trying to bathe. And now that we all caught up, I'm gonna let you know what happens next. So Pharaoh's daughter, she seen the basket, and she had her servant with her, so she was like, hey, can you go get that basket? The servant get the basket, she opened the basket, she realizes it's a baby in a basket. But she noticed it's one of the Israelites' babies that's in the basket. She looked at him, she did one of those, oh. So at this point, I'm feeling like this is when Miriam that came out the bushes, because she done seen an opportunity. She walked up to Pharaoh's daughter like, hey, I see you got a baby there. That's a Hebrew baby. It don't look like you nursing anytime soon. You need me to go get somebody to nurse that baby? And Pharaoh's daughter was like, oh my gosh, yes, please. Now, of course, for Miriam, we in there. So Miriam, she go back to the crib. She tell her mama like, hey, look, Pharaoh's daughter got the baby. But hold up. She don't want to off the baby. She want to take care of him. So what I need you to do, I need you to come with me because we about to pull off the biggest finesse we've ever pulled off. And I don't really know if that's how it happened, but for me, that's how it happened. Because when she left to go get somebody to nurse that baby and came back, she came back with her mama. So that's gotta be along the lines of what happened. But now they're back in front of Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's daughter's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You got somebody to nurse this baby for me. And she looked at Jochebed, she was like, if you take care of this baby, I'll pay you. Let's go. Jochebed was not turning down that offer. That's her baby. But I don't know if Pharaoh's daughter knew that. If I was Jochebed, I'd have been like, say less. You mean to tell me you gonna pay me to nurse the baby that I already wanted to nurse? God is good. And back then, they was nursing for like 2-3 years. So not only was she about to get paid for doing the thing that she wanted to do, she was actually going to be able to watch him grow up at least a little bit. Why somebody got to be at the door right now? I'm going to get it later. Anyway, it's got to be tough having to give your baby up like that in that manner. But it was way better than the alternative. The alternative was that baby either floating down the river to God knows what, or Pharaoh's daughter finding that baby and doing what her daddy told her to do. But yeah, she nursed the baby, took care of him, gave him back to Pharaoh's daughter, and Pharaoh's daughter ended up naming him Moses because she said she fished him out of the river, which it wasn't her, it was her maid. But I mean, to each his own. And yes, that was the origin story of the Moses. You know, the one that eventually freed his people from slavery. But that's why this is not his story. This is the story of the women who had to carry the Israelites on their back. Because if they didn't keep that little boy off the chopping block, there would be no Moses. So let's get into the 3 main heroes of the story. We got Jochebed, Moses' mother. We got Miriam, Moses' sister. And we got Pharaoh's daughter. They never really named her, but that's Moses' stepmama. And let's start with what I learned from the mama. From the very beginning, she was moving in divine timing. She waited 3 whole months to even take her baby to the river. And that just so happened to be the same time Pharaoh's daughter wanted to take a bath. And at that time, let's be real, Pharaoh's daughter was probably the only person that can genuinely take care of that baby. Because she was the only person that wouldn't have been persecuted for it. Because let's be real, they found a Hebrew baby in a Hebrew house, they probably just gonna kill that baby and that family anyway. But he was able to be raised in the palace because of the timing that God set. It showed me that there's really no such thing as coincidences, because God's timing is God's timing, and that timing is always on time. But also, second to that, she showed me that God is always going to give you everything you need so that the weapons formed against you don't prosper. What she was really supposed to do was she was supposed to take that baby, no basket, no nothing, and toss him in the river. No, she had a basket at the house, she had tar at the house, she had pitch at the house, and she had a skill to be able to use it to make sure that that baby would float. So the law put in place was just null and void because that baby was always going to survive. God had him. God gave her the tools, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the skills. She was straight and that baby was straight too. But then let's get to our second hero, Miriam. I don't know how old Miriam was. Some people say she was a kid. Some people say she was an adult. I don't know what she was, but what she was impactful. Miriam had about 2 lines in that entire chapter. And that's after Moses had already grown up, had kids, got married, and all that. And we don't even see her again till like chapters 15, 16. And that was after Moses was already grown, had his kids, had a wife, and had saved them from Egypt. I mean, we don't hear from her for a little minute, but that's also what was so powerful. We heard her words, but it was her actions that made the biggest impact. Miriam wasn't just sitting around not doing nothing. Miriam quite literally let God put her in position so when it was time to fulfill her purpose, she could walk in. And she learned that when you surrender and you really allow God to use you like that, it don't just help that person, it help you too. Her helping Moses in Exodus 2 was what freed her in Exodus 15. But that's something I learned from all of them. You never know who you helping. And I mean, it really don't matter because like a person is a person, but you know what I mean. Like, you never know who you helping. They was helping the Moses. Moses was a baby when her people was in slavery. She didn't know all that Moses was going to grow up to be. All she knew was I'm watching out for my little brother and I'm going to make sure he's straight. Granted, he could have probably grew up and been an axe murderer. But because they helped him, they was able to be free from oppression. And let's be real, it wasn't just her brother that she helped. She helped her mama too. Do you know how brutal that walk back home had to have been? You just had to leave your baby in a river going God knows where for God knows how long. You don't even know if he gonna survive that little river trip even though you tried your best. You don't know what's gonna happen to your son once you leave, but you know you ain't got no choice. But because your daughter let God put her in position, she was able to not only bring the baby home, but bring home a check. And let's be real, it's not even about the money. It's not about the money at all. The money was a bonus. The money was God just showing out. But she got to not only take care of her baby for a little while longer, but she got the peace of mind that came with knowing he was going to be straight. Because it would have probably killed her think about what happened to her kid after she put him in a river. And then, an extra bonus, she ain't got to hide no more. Pharaoh's daughter told me to take care of my baby. So whatever that was that had her spooked after 3 months, can't touch her no more. Pharaoh's daughter told me to do this. At this point, I'm on assignment. And I'm getting paid for this. I'm an employee. Yeah, that is not only the ultimate finesse, but that is the ultimate blessing. But whatever, then we get to our last main character, Pharaoh's daughter. Now, Pharaoh's daughter, to me, like Miriam did her big one, and she did her biggest one. But Pharaoh's daughter, to me, stepped the hardest. Because she wasn't just this girl that was going to go take a bath and ended up sponsoring a baby. No. She showed what it looked like when you got favor in your life. Now, Moses had a certain level of favor, which is why every step of Moses' way, Moses was taken care of. Like, if you really look at the story of Exodus, Moses had favor through and through. But Pharaoh's daughter had it too. Let's just think about Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's daughter was raised in a household with a man that said if you had a baby and that baby was a boy, you need to toss him in a river. Do you know the level of favor you gotta have on your life for you not to turn into somebody like that while you living under somebody like that? Like, usually people always say, oh, I never be like my mama, I never be like my daddy, I never be like my parents or whatever. Everybody always say that. But if you really look closely at your life, sometimes you try so hard not to take on those characteristics that you take them all on, actually. That's why people always say, like, they breaking generational curses, because those are generational curses. Like, sometimes that stuff is in your DNA, which means either A, God protected her heart, her mind, her body, her soul so hard that what was around her never was able to get in her. Or B, which is, you know, I know this is like one of the most common routes. You take on all that, you become that, but then God has to prune and prime you and like really do heart surgery on you just to make sure that all that stuff that got in you can get out. Because let's be real, Pharaoh's daughter could have yeeted that baby back into the ocean and it would have been seen as her doing just her civic duty. But she looked at that baby and she had compassion. She showed so many of the different fruits of the spirits that it's just like, you could tell God's favor was on her the entire time. Like, you can tell that God sent her for a reason. And whether that was after he had to really protect her from all that other stuff or after he had to really get her heart together, because just like her father, that stuff can harden your heart. Fear can harden your heart. Hurt can harden your heart. Sadness can low-key harden your heart. It really just depends, but there's so many different emotions and so many different ways that your heart can be hardened that God has to do a little bit extra to get all that up out of you. So regardless of which route she was on, her being able to show up in that way, meaning like her being able to see that baby and still have compassion for that baby, knowing that that baby was supposed to be yeeted back into the river, then taking upon herself to pay one of the Hebrew people to take care of this baby that don't belong to her, then inviting that baby into the palace and raising that baby as her own. That type of heart posture coming out of that type of home, that's favor on top of favor. So when she looked at that basket at Moses and Moses looked back at her, they recognized each other. Because favor recognized favor. Because there's no other explanation for that. But that just goes to show that before you even realize God showing up for you, he has shown up for you in at least 12 different moments and points and times that you don't even notice yet. And that's why Pharaoh's daughter being how she was and who she was hit as hard as it did. But now let's recap on what we got. So number one, everything is in God's timing. Because you are always exactly where you need to be when you need to be there. God quite literally executed everything before they even got there. From the 3 months that she took to Pharaoh's daughter just showing up to bathe. Like, everything was orchestrated in such a way that you know God's timing ain't no coincidence. But number two, God sometimes is going to put you in some less than desirable positions for greater purposes. Because nobody wanted to be there, let's be real. Jochebed obviously didn't want to be in that situation because that walk home was probably filled with tears. Miriam had to watch that because sometimes it hurts more to watch somebody go through something than to actually go through something. Then we got Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's daughter probably actually didn't mind being there, but she was put in a compromising position because where's she raising that baby at? In the palace. Where her daddy at? In the palace. So you see how that could have, yeah. He could have easily killed that man because when Moses ended up even growing up, Pharaoh ain't waste no time putting a hit out on that man after he had did some stuff. We gonna get into that later. But yeah, the first opportunity that Pharaoh had to kill him, he tried. And honestly, we don't even know if that's the first attempt. But then we got number three. Let God put you in position. Sometimes God puts us in seasons so that he can position us for the things that he promised us for. But we got to be willing to get in position. And it's one of the hardest things in the world. We don't know how long she waited. She could have been out there for 3 hours. Just sitting, waiting. No chips, no Doritos, no nothing. She just sitting there waiting. And she didn't know what was going to happen. She was probably waiting in dread. And then when Pharaoh's daughter showed up, that was probably the hardest season of waiting she ever had. You know that this is the one person that's supposed to kill your brother. But she let God put her in position anyway until God gave her that push to move. until she seen her opportunity that God was telling her was gonna come. But during the time of her waiting, that had to be a brutal moment. And you sitting here and you listening to God, and God's like, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. You like, it don't look like nothing that you doing. My mama is sitting over here boohoo crying, going through it, and my brother is sitting here in a river just floating off to God knows where. But that's number 3. Let God put you in position, because there's purpose behind the position every time. Now we at number 4. There's a certain level of favor that's on people's lives that they can't even comprehend yet. You sitting here thinking you skating through life and everybody around you wondering how you still here. Favor. Moses was just a baby with no knowledge of favor, but he had it. Moses quite literally grew up in a house that had nothing to do with God, and not willingly, but for him to grow up without God and then become one of God's greatest soldiers, that's a level of favor he didn't even know about growing up. And then when it comes to Pharaoh's daughter, let's be real, she probably never learned about God, but she had all of God's favor on her life. That lady was supposed to be one of the most evil people in Egypt, but God made sure that what was around her never got in her. Which takes us to number 5. God will literally go the extra mile to make sure that your heart posture is exactly what he needed to be. And there's 2 sides to that, and you don't necessarily get to choose. He did it with Pharaoh's daughter, and he also did it with Moses. Just seeing the fact that he went from one place to another should let you know, like, God really had to do a number on Moses real quick. But you could also be like Miriam. Miriam got in position immediately. Ain't nobody tell her to do what she did. She was probably just listening to God. Later on, it did say that she was a prophet. So maybe she heard God and she just listened. But just know God always gonna go the extra mile for you. Even if it don't feel the best, he always gonna go the extra mile. But then we get another 6. You never know who you helping. Pharaoh's daughter didn't even have to see Jochebed to help Jochebed. Pharaoh's daughter just thought she was helping Moses. And then also Miriam thought that she was just helping Moses. But Miriam was also helping Jochebed. Everybody in trying to make sure that Moses was good and Moses was gonna be all right ended up making sure Jochebed would be good and Jochebed would be all right. So they don't even know what they did for her in that moment. And honestly, they probably never even thought about it because they was doing it for Moses. But this whole story just goes to show that number 7, God gives no small parts. All 3 of these women carry Israel on their back for real. But people rarely talk about the hand that they had in saving everybody. But God literally gives no small parts. Everybody that is or was in your life, they helped you elevate in some way, shape, or form to get what God needed you to be, so that you can then be the person that God called you to be. Because whoever that person is, it's gonna be dope for real. You just gotta let God get you there. So I pray y'all got something good out of this week's Bible study session, because I know I did. And I hope that even if you didn't read it, you go back and read it, because I probably had something totally different than what you got, because the Bible study book has something totally different than what I got. Next week's story is not gonna be in a Bible study book because I want to give y'all time to get it if y'all gonna get it. But it was inspired by this story in the Bible study book, and it's gonna be coming from chapter 12 in the book of Numbers. And I hope you read it because it's a quick little story and it's a slight continuation of this story. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. I pray that you have an amazing day and an even more incredible week. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and keep God first. I love, love, love y'all, and I will see y'all on Saturday.